Hello and welcome to another episode of Township Talks. I'm Katie.
I'm Holly.
And today we are playing a fun game of whose job is it anyway? But there are no points and there's no singing or anything. But basically going over the many responsibilities of whose job is it for the reports and administrative work that happens throughout the year.
And we're really talking about this time too. It's some of the reports that are upcoming the end of March and the beginning of April. Mm-hmm. There's quite a few of those. Usually we look at January being very busy time with lots of reports, but this right now is a really busy time as well.
So let's start with, I think the most fun one for me, because there's like multiple parties involved, is the audit. So if I had to ask you who's responsible for the audit, what would your answer be?
I'd say ultimately the Board of Supervisors is responsible to make sure that that audit is completed. They're not the ones performing the audit, but the board is responsible to oversee the finances in the township. So it's important that the supervisors make sure that whether it's the elected auditors or a CPA, to make sure that that audit is being done, even if it is the person who's being audited who's doing some of those outreaches. That's a check and balance, again, to make sure that, again, the audit's being done. And they should be getting a report, too, of how, was it done? Were there any issues? Were there recommendations or concerns? And whether it's a CPA or the elected auditors, they should be coming to the Board of Supervisors meeting to provide a report and to answer any questions. And that's a good time, again, just to ask clarifications as well. How did it look like? Was a good audit done?
Perfect. So on one hand, it's Board of Supervisors basically make sure that it actually gets done. Mm-hmm. The Board of Auditors or the CPA actually performs the audit. And then on top of that, there's a report that's required and an advertisement that's required. So again, who's responsible? It gets very interesting in this world. Yeah,
it does. So for their legal advertisement, that's supposed to be done by April 15th. And ultimately, it's the staff's job, secretary, manager, to make sure that that ad is placed. However, you can't do that, or they can't do that, unless they have information provided by the CPA or the elected auditors. So it's really kind of a combination of who's responsible in that case. And if the audit is going to be delayed, you're not going to be able to place that audit on time.
Yeah, I think that's what we hear about a lot, is that particularly if a CPA is performing the audit, unfortunately with it also being tax season, sometimes the CPAs just get really bogged down and taxes end up unfortunately taking priority for them. So often townships using a CPA may end up having a late audit. In that case, we always suggest reach out to DCED ASAP and let them know that you're prepared for you're trying to get the audit done, but it is probably going to be late. If you can give them an estimate of when it's going to be completed, reach out to them.
And we should say who's responsible for actually making sure that that report is filed, or doing the filing itself for the audit report with DCED.
That's a great point. Whoever is performing the audit should be the one submitting that report. It really should not be the secretary. Sometimes we hear that question come up. Township secretary should not be filing that report. The elected auditors or the CPA should be the ones reaching out to DCED, get that login information if they don't already have it, and submit that report once it's complete.
And they'll get separate login credentials than the township secretary or manager, whoever's filing the other reports with DCED.
So on reports, we had sort of alluded to, there's a lot of other reports coming up in March and April. Who's responsible for all these ones coming up?
Most of the other reports, it is the secretary or the manager, whoever is the administrator, who's responsible to complete most of those reports. And there are a variety of those coming up by the end of the month, end of this month, including the AG 385. That's required for your pension aid, but even if you don't have pension aid, that's required to get your fire relief funds. Mm-hmm. You have your RCT 900 PERTA report, let's just call it the PERTA report, that is due April 1st. And it's not a lot of money, but every township should file that report as well. It's on assessed valuations of certain power generation and distribution facilities.
Perfect.
So it used to be a lot higher many years ago.
Mm-hmm. So what we had developed, just as a fun aside, we had put together this annual checklist for reports. Long story short, we tried to tackle the many reports and responsibilities that townships do have throughout the year, and included, where you have to file it, contact information if you're having issues filing the report. So highly recommend checking that out because, as we'd mentioned, there's reports due throughout the year. This happens to be one of the busier times. We did mail a copy out to every township, but if you'd like another copy or want to use the PDF version, just go to PSATS.org, head to the News and Publications tab, and then it's under Manuals and Brochures.
Another form we didn't mention is for anyone who received funds from the natural gas wells, the impact fees. Last year, there is a report that needs to be completed each April on how you spend it or how you plan to spend it, and that's due April 15th to the Public Utilities Commission.
Ooh, and since we're in April, I could talk about my favorite report that's coming up, which is the Project and Expenditure Report, which is the report associated with your ARP funds, your SLF funds, your COVID money. That report's going to be coming up, opening up around April 1st, and will be due April 30th. We will provide another walkthrough webinar, and along with some other guidance in April. I think you said the 7th, correct?
We're looking to schedule 2 different sessions, April 7th and 8th, so look for that. Should be coming out anytime, and you should be able to find it here in the morning news.
Absolutely. And then we'll also have that guidance available on our website, of course, as well, on psats.org. And then under quick links, we have a little direct link to our American Rescue Plan page.
And finally, our favorite report that we get lots of questions on every year, the Statement of Financial Interest, the ethics form. Whose responsibility is it to file the Statement of Financial Interest each year?
Short answer, because that's a good one. Short answer is, it is the responsibility of the person who has to file that form. So if you fall under the definitions of public official or public employee under the Ethics Act, it's your responsibility to know that you need to file that and to file it with the township. It really should not be the township secretary's responsibility to hound everybody and ask them all to bring it to them. It's a personal responsibility to submit those on time.
Yes, we get that question from secretaries a lot. Yes, we do recommend you reach out. Mm-hmm. We do recommend you let people know who needs to complete it, which would be the elected officials, appointed officials, and depending on your job, some of the employees, township employees as well. But ultimately, if the secretary doesn't get that person to file it, the secretary or manager does not get in trouble. It's the individual who could face fines.
Correct. Cool. So hopefully some of this was informational for you all and interesting of whose job is it anyway. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and keep an eye out on the morning news for updates and future TVNs from PSATS.